Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 113. I hope that you are all well and that you've had a delightful week. So, I've been guided this week to record a podcast on manifestation in regards to money. And I'll be honest with you, I was a bit reluctant at first because, one, I still get a little bit of imposter syndrome around teaching money mindset because I'm not yet a millionaire in the 3D. And therefore, my ego tells me that I'm not qualified to tell anybody else about manifesting money, despite the fact that I have personally seen a massive transformation in this area in my own life, that just because I've not got to millionaire stage that I can't help you with this, and that is simply not true because I can definitely help you with this. And secondly, I had a few reservations because I know that a lot of people find talking about money to be very uncomfortable, to be rude, like you're showing off, etc., etc. So it can be taken in the wrong way sometimes, and of course I don't want my listeners to think like that of me. However, I've decided that I am going to record it and I'm going to share with you parts of my own experience about money and what I've learned so far about creating more of it. And like I said, I am learning more and more about this every week. But there are certain things that I can teach you now that are going to help you. And the reason that I've decided to record on this is because I think it's really, really important that people become, well, I know it is really important that you become comfortable talking about money and that we get rid of these ideas that it's rude to talk about money or that you're showing off or whatever it is. Because if we don't get comfortable talking about money, we can't receive more of it. And as I know that it's my sole purpose to help you expand and become conscious creators in every single area, my duty to be the person who talks about things like this is bigger than my reservations about doing it. So we're going to go for it, guys. Now, I'm also very, very passionate about all kinds of manifestations. And years ago, I remember people like watching content and reading, well, it was more reading things then, about manifesting money, and I kind of disregarded it because I didn't want to learn about that. I wanted to learn how to manifest specific things, items, experiences, things like that. But now I feel very differently towards manifestation and money, and I actually have a sneaky feeling that a few years from now, teaching people to manifest money will actually become the main focus of my career, but I don't know. So we'll see about that. Stay tuned. But you heard it here first. So the first thing that we need to talk about when it comes to manifesting money is exactly what I've just talked about, is how we demonize it. And a lot of this comes from our social conditioning. Things like Disney characters, for example, who have money, like Cruella de Vil, for example, being portrayed as the bad guy. It's always the bad guy that is rich and the poor guy the good guy that is poor. So we, from a very young age, start to associate wealth with greed, with selfishness, with lording above the others, with using control and power for negative reasons, which is why, paired with the fact that English people in particular are just very awkward and we feel awkward about everything, that's why a lot of us have big blocks around money, around creating more of it, around not having enough of it. It's kind of like you can't win because people feel embarrassed sometimes when they don't have enough, and they also feel embarrassed when they have more than enough. It can make you feel awkward either way. And that is not kind of good soil to grow more wealth on, if that makes sense. So we've got to get rid of those associations with it. What money actually means is freedom. That's what it does. Every single person needs money in some form. We've got to pay bills, we've got to exchange it for food, for anything that we need. But if we have an overflow of it, what that does is it creates freedom. And it also creates power for you to do good. So if you're a good person, which I know that you all are, you don't need to be fearful about having more money. It's not going to turn you into this horrible person that people don't like, or it's not going to make you greedy, and it's not going to make you selfish. It's going to do the opposite. It's going to allow you to let other people rise off the back of your financial success. You're going to be able to give more freely. You're going to be able to tip people at restaurants better. You're going to be able to maybe provide jobs in a big company that you create or that you build. You're going to be able to support small businesses. You're going to be able to support charities and things that are close to your heart. You can do lots of good. You can have a lot of influence and power by having money, and you can use that influence and power to do good things in the world. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely would it be that you would be able to manifest £1 million in the next 12 months? Just rate yourself. What would you say? If I said, how likely is it that you could manifest £1 million in the next 12 months? 1 being absolutely fucking no way on the earth that I could possibly do that, and 10 being like, yeah, I've already got £1 million, like it's done. Now I want you to think about that same question, but I'm going to change it slightly, and please bear with me while you listen to this part, because it sounds awful at first, but there is a reason for it being such a harsh example, I promise you. If I told you that if you don't make or manifest £1 million in the next 12 months, that you would never see your children again, or that the person or people that you really love would die. I know that sounds awful. I know it's super harsh. I know you're thinking, what the fuck is she talking about? But I just want you to think for a second. Now, what is the probability on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being no way at all, 10 being it's a dead cert. Excuse the use of the word dead there. Of you manifesting £1 million in the next 12 months. So if I just ask you generally, how likely is it? Does that change, and does it change dramatically if there is a massive kind of risk to not doing it? And the reason that goes up dramatically for most people, it goes from very near the bottom of the scale where it just doesn't seem possible to very likely, is that the stakes are so high and your imagination goes wild in order to come up with ways that you could make that happen in order to prevent that terrible event happening. And I actually talked about this yesterday. I went to like a business meeting with my dad's company, and we were talking about, he's got a company called Armour Plate UK. Come and follow us on Instagram. And he's brought out a new product because he makes van security, vehicle security, camper van security, all that stuff. And he's selling this new product, and it's a really, really good product. But people tend to buy things when they have a reason to do it. So, for example, hardly anybody buys vehicle security until the vehicle has already been stolen. And then they go into overdrive and they think, oh, the value of that is really high, so I'm going to get one right now because I never want that to happen again. And that's kind of the same thing with that scale. It's when you put the stakes really high, or you're trying to prevent something from happening that you really don't want to happen, and you're really passionate about it and you're connected to it emotionally, your imagination allows you to come up with ideas of how you can make that happen. You've got access to an incredible source of creative ideas that you can tap into at any time. Now, in that example that I gave you about killing off your family, sorry about that, you were tapping into that imagination through very high negative stakes. You were driven to come up with ideas, and you might have even had some in that very moment of how you might get that money, driven by not wanting something to happen so deeply and feeling such an emotional, strong connection to that terrible vision. So you can do exactly the same, but switching it to a positive vision that you feel really strongly emotionally connected to. And that's why when I talk to you in this podcast and when I'm working with one-to-one clients and when I'm in the membership, I'll harp on about having a vision that lights you the fuck up, that makes you excited, that you can get connected to on an emotional level. That's an absolute must. You've got to know your why behind it, especially if you're manifesting money. And if we take the dead family out of the equation altogether now, let's put that to bed and just think about manifesting, for example, £1 million and having that money sat in your bank. Nothing changes. Absolutely nothing would change in your life for the better if you just had £1 million or 100 grand or whatever number comes to mind. It's just a number on a screen. At best, it would be a fleeting moment of excitement and of satisfaction that you're officially a millionaire, but you've got nothing that connects you emotionally to having that vision. So it would be very difficult to bring money in that scenario. You have got to connect emotionally to that vision by thinking about how would you use that amount of money to create a life that you fucking love, that is so exciting that it sustains you through the process of manifestation, where maybe things might not look to be going in the right direction in the 3D because it's all happening behind the scenes. So something that I do, and I do this with various different goals that make up my vision, they're not all to do with money, and you can change this to relate to other areas, other parts of your life. I'm using money as an example because it's a really good one for this, and it's something that we all use. So when I'm making a vision and I have a specific goal, like, I want to buy something in particular, I'll think about how much is that going to cost. I'll overestimate it a little bit to make sure that I've got overflow. And then I'll use this hack that I'm going to share with you that I'd like you to try. So think about a specific goal, ideally a monetary one, that feels totally out of reach. Monetary goals work really well because you can get quite specific with them. Now, what I want you to do is write that in the middle of a piece of paper. And around the outside, I want you to brainstorm at least, but you can do more, at least 20 ideas of how you could possibly receive that money. Now, notice that I say receive and not earn or make. We definitely can earn and make it. That can be a part of those ideas. But I also want you to think of other ways that you could just receive it. I want you to use your imagination. And there will be loads of ways that you can brainstorm about making it. They're great, put them on. But also imagine ways that you could possibly receive it just for fun and for the purposes of practicing expansion of your imagination. The beauty in this practice is not that you finish the brainstorm and have a logical plan of action. That is not what it's for, because it's really none of your business how that arrives. It's connecting to it emotionally, making sure you know what you want that money for, and thinking of all the different possibilities, stretching your imagination of how that might come into you. And by stretching and expanding that imagination and coming up with ways that you could receive it, including ways that you could earn it or make it, what you're doing there is making it feel safer, you're making it more possible for you. And therefore, you're stepping into a state where you can receive that money more easily. So I brainstorm and I plan for how I'm going to get somewhere, but I never do it with the intention of holding on firmly to those ideas or of doing every single thing on that brainstorm. Definitely some of them, like I'll have a go at some of them, you've got to take some action, but you don't want to be attached to the way that you're going to get there. And it's to normalise that this is not only possible, but it's absolutely achievable and doable. And I do that knowing from the outset that it's very unlikely to come in on any of those ways that I'm writing down. And the way that it does come in when I do manifest money, which I've got very good at over the past year or two, it's always a total surprise. It's something that I could not have imagined. But what I've done is I've stretched that imagination muscle out, and I've come up with loads of really creative ideas of how that money might come in. So then it starts to feel subconsciously safer and more possible. So I'll share with you an example, a recent example of how things can begin to unfold when you do this. Now, this is not a completed manifestation. But a few weeks ago, probably 2 weeks ago, I suddenly decided that I would really love a new car. I got this vision in my mind of having this new car. And the car that I would love is a black Jeep Wrangler. Now, I've just been on a call with a new one-to-one client, and I was telling her about this. And she was saying, oh, it's going to be a G-Wagon, isn't it? And that's because I've talked about a G-Wagon before. And I'll tell you why I have not put my vision around a G-Wagon right now. It's because my level of expansion is not allowing me to connect to having a G-Wagon. I can't see it yet. I'm not expanded enough to connect to the vision of owning that car. But when I think about owning a black Jeep Wrangler, which is another one of my dream cars, I get really excited about that, and I have no fucking idea how I'm going to get it, but I know that I am going to get it. So that's kind of the sweet spot. So I got clear on the car that I wanted, and I worked out exactly how much it would be to buy one of those cars, the one that I wanted, because I didn't think I had enough bucks to get it on like the finance, because I've just left working in a job and now I'm in a business on my own. So I decided that I was going to find the whole amount of money for it. And now I can see actually that I've done exactly what I tell you not to do. And I've looked at the circumstances and tried to control something a little bit, because I've thought, well, I don't have any books, so I can't have that way. So I'm going to find another way. But it doesn't really matter in the long run. All I should be focusing on is just that vision of that car. And that's how I want it. So where was I up to? I've lost what I was talking about now. Yeah, so I got clear on the one that I wanted. I worked out how much it would be to buy it, not thinking that I had enough books to get it on finance. And then I brainstormed all the ideas of how I could receive that amount of money to buy that car. And I was super, super connected to it. And I was really lit up and excited by it. I couldn't think of a plan to logically get there, which is good because it means it takes it out of my hands. But I knew that I could get it because I emotionally connected to it. It wasn't so far beyond. So you might think about that in terms of money. If you think, let's say that you earn 30 grand now, it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to emotionally connect straight to £1 million. There's actually no reason why you couldn't manifest that other than could you get the emotional connection to it. But what you might be able to connect to is 100 grand. Does that make sense? So anyway, I let it go. I brainstormed. I accepted that it was happening. And then today, and again, I'm not saying that this is actually the way that it'll come in, because it might not be. And I'm open to it coming in anyway. But I had a phone call off the dealership of the place that I bought my current car from, saying that they just had an offer on, because my car's discontinued now, that they would give me £4,000 off a new car, off a different car. It didn't have to be new, it could be used or new. And I said, oh, well, thanks very much for your offer. That's really kind of you. However, I'm actually not going to be buying another one of those. Oh, fuck me. Who's this? Suzanne, it's you. I'll ring you back. Hang on, it's my friend Suzanne. Right, anyway. So, I've totally got distracted now. Where was I up to? What was I talking about? All right, yeah. So I said, oh, thank you very much for your offer. That sounds amazing. £4,000 off a different car. However, I'm not going to be buying one of those. It's a Ford. I'm not going to be buying a Ford because I've decided I'm having a different car next time. So I'm just going to carry on with this one, and then I'll be getting a different one. He said, oh, what is it? And I said, it's a Jeep. He was like, oh, what kind of Jeep Wrangler? He said, well, we've actually got a Jeep in our group. Like, we've got a Jeep section in our group. I don't know what that means. But basically what he was telling me is that he can source a Jeep if I send him the specifications, and that I could use this offer, this £4,000 offer, off a Jeep instead of off a Ford. Now, again, that might not be how it comes in, but I just wanted to share that with you to show you an example of how when you set the vision, you get super clear on it, you connect to it, you know exactly how much you want to buy it, if it's a monetary thing. The universe, if you want to call it that, or, your 3D reality, will rearrange in ways that you couldn't expect in order to make that a reality for you, a 3D reality. And it will bring it to you with far more ease and far more flow than you could ever actually come up with by creating a logical plan. But I'm doing my part by expanding my imagination, making it safe for my subconscious, and starting to take actions that I know will contribute towards that. Does that make sense? I hope so. So don't be fearful as well of acknowledging where you are currently when it comes to finances, when it comes to money. A lot of people, especially when they're trying to manifest more money, think that they just have to totally ignore like the amount of money that they've got now or the amount of debt that they've got in order to manifest more. And there's some truth in that, but I'm going to explain it. You still want to look at your current circumstances right now. You just don't want to react negatively to it, react emotionally to it, because that's what will create more. But actually having knowledge and having an understanding of where you're starting from, as well as where you're going, can be really useful. So anybody who teaches money mindset, and I've read lots of books on it, and I've listened to lots of other teachers who specifically teach on manifesting money, one of the things that they will all encourage you to do is get clear on exactly where you are. Don't be fearful of looking, because even when you're avoiding it, you're actually still feeling really negatively about it. You're feeling scared, you're feeling worried, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling like you are in a state of lack. So if you've got loads of bills piling up and you're just trying to ignore them because you're trying to stay positive, that isn't going to help. Burying your head in the sand out of fear of knowing that you've got debt in the 3D right now and saying, I'm wealthy, when really you feel fucking terrified because you know it's there, is not living in the vision. That's totally different. Looking at your 3D when it comes to money does two things. First of all, it stops it from getting bigger than it is in your imagination, because your imagination will always make it worse. It will catastrophize it if you're not using your imagination in the right direction. So often it will then also bring you more peace, because it won't be as bad as your imagination is telling you. Even if it's pretty technically bad, it won't be as bad as what your imagination is creating. Your current situation in the 3D with regards to money is past tense, like everything else in the 3D. And I know that it feels real, especially when it comes to money, because we've got a lot of fear and beliefs, collective, very strong beliefs about money. But it is still like anything else, like relationships, like health, like whatever the fuck's going on in your 3D reality, it is still a shadow of your past thoughts, a manifestation of your past dominant thinking. And listen closely to this part, this is important. Whatever your current 3D situation in relation to money is right now has absolutely fucking nothing to do with what comes next for you. Nothing to do with it. And I know that that's a really hard concept to accept, but trust me, it has got nothing to do with what you experience next. You get to choose what you experience next through the thoughts that you choose to think dominantly next. And you can use your 3D circumstance. So if you're in a load of debt right now, look at it, acknowledge it, accept that, and use it as a clue to analyse what is happening in your subconscious that has created this. What needs to be unpicked, because it can really show you the thoughts that you've been unconsciously thinking that have created this current 3D reality. Because It's you, babe. It's nobody else. It's not somebody else's fault. It's not a circumstance's fault, because you are the only operant power in your reality. There's only you creating. And I know that if you're in a bit of a struggle place at the minute financially, you probably don't want to accept that. You want to pass the blame to somebody else. But when you do that, all you are doing is giving away your creative power that you could use to create something new that you prefer instead. So that doesn't mean that you need to beat yourself up, because you've not consciously chosen to create shitty circumstances that you don't like, but you still have created them by accident. So now that you know that, and now that you have that information and understanding of what's going on, you can use that circumstance to inform you of where you've been going wrong, so that you can then move better from now on. And something to bear in mind here is to think about, I don't know if you saw it on my Instagram, but I have talked about it in the podcast before. Think about it as the Vimto in the glass. You are not immediately going to see a glass of Vimto, which represents your current 3D circumstance, turn into a glass of water. It's a process. So just because it still looks a bit Vimto-y in the 3D while you're thinking these new thoughts, that's all right. It doesn't matter, because what you're going to see soon is a glass of water. I hope that you know what I'm talking about there. If you don't remember that, you'll have to have a look on my Instagram. But you're diluting it and diluting it and diluting it until eventually you see something completely different in the glass. But if you start shitting yourself every time you see that it's still got a bit of Vimto in, you're pouring more Vimto into the glass when you want a glass of water. Now, I also want to say here that I am not claiming to have ever been in a position where I was like about to become homeless or something like that. I have got an amazing family who I know would take me in a heartbeat if I was in that situation, who would even pay that month's mortgage for me if I was that desperate. So I'll tell you straight up, I don't know what it's like. But what I know for an absolute fucking fact is that how skint you are right now, how in debt you are, how in lack you are in this moment in the 3D is completely irrelevant, and it has zero impact on what you create from right now, as long as you don't emotionally react to it and you choose a new reality through choosing new thoughts. It has no bearing on what you're going to experience in the future. None. Unless you give it the power to do that by continuing to emotionally react to a circumstance that you don't like. I have, however, been in positions where I have struggled with money. I have sat on the bedroom floor and cried my eyes out with panic and embarrassment on the phone to the council tax, barely able to get my words out after I got a £2,000 bill, more than that, I think it was about £2,500, begging them to put me on a payment plan because I had no fucking idea how I could possibly pay it, and I had a debt collection letter saying I was being taken to court for it. I have had multiple red letters littering my coffee table for lots of other smaller bills like gas and electric and all of that sort of stuff that have been left unpaid for months. I have on several occasions had to put a £5 in my car at the petrol station because it was completely empty and I didn't have any more money and I needed to get home from somewhere, from work or whatever. I have run completely, and I mean completely, out of money. Not even a quid, exceeded way past my overdraft limit, totally unexpectedly, 15 days before payday when I was working in a job. And I still didn't have to borrow or struggle because I decided to choose new thoughts that supported a reality that I preferred. And I manifested every single penny that I used following that month until payday. And it came in all kinds of different, bizarre, unexpected ways. And I did that by choosing new thoughts. And all of that I've talked about, my personal experiences there, that's not a long, distant memory at all. That has all happened well within the time that you've been listening to this podcast over the past couple of years. no one, not my mum, not my dad, not my best mates, not a fucking soul knew about my financial situation or my struggles in the 3D. And that was intentional, because you will never, ever, ever find me speaking in energy and power into circumstances that I don't desire. I will not fucking do it, because I know better, and you know better too. After emptying all my panicked and fearful thoughts out into my journal, because it's safe to do that, you need to get it out, and crying my eyes out and panicking and feeling scared and allowing those emotions to come through, I chose then to keep my mouth firmly shut until I was speaking about creating money, about abundance, about wealth. In 3 years, I went from living in a 2-income household with no kids, in a time where things weren't as dear anyway. You know, your food shopping didn't cost 500 quid every time you went. And we were bringing in between us over 70 grand a year, paying more than my way into a bills account, but never having actually even physically paid a household bill myself. That was all left to my ex. I just used to put the money in. To then halving my income, going from a 2-person household to a 1-person household, being solely responsible for paying and running my home on my own, and doing a very poor job of it for quite some time, getting into debt, feeling overwhelmed, feeling scared, feeling lack, having fuck all money in the 3D, literally not a fucking penny in the 3D, but continuously working hard on my money mindset, because I didn't want to continue experiencing that. And in 6 months, I went from that place of having no financial security at all to leaving my job, building a business that I love, that gives me so much freedom and this massive sense of purpose and impact, and manifesting £12,000 in a month. Not all from work, receiving it in bizarre ways, and from work as well, from business. £12,000 in a month from fucking nothing. And I know, like, you know, that's one of the things that I was reluctant to record about, because again, I don't want that to come across like, oh, like, look what I've got, at all. I want to show you what's possible, and what's possible in a really short amount of time. Your circumstances do not fucking matter. Stop giving them power. Stop putting your emotions in and meaning into things that you don't want. Stop putting time and space between what you're experiencing now and what you desire instead, and telling yourself how long it's going to take and how hard it's going to be. Stop affirming lack. Stop it right now. I don't care whether the bailiffs are carrying your fucking TV out of the door while you are listening to this episode. Stop giving it power. Cry if you need to. Be scared for half an hour. Worry about it for a little bit. Journal it out. Say what you need to. And then stop making it your dominant thinking. Move forward. Start choosing new thoughts. Acknowledge it, definitely. Accept that it's old. Create something new from this moment forward. You can either create a reality where those bailiffs come back for your laptop next month, or one where you've just created space on your wall for a brand new, bigger, better, state-of-the-art 8K picture, so good that it's currently unreleased. It's neon, lights up, cooks your fucking tea, hoovers your house, picks your husband's underpants up off the floor, TV, and you're going to receive that now because you've made space for it, because the bailiffs have took your old one. You get to choose the meaning, and you get to choose the thoughts that follow that event. So becoming emotionally connected to a big, juicy vision that really lights you up is what is going to save you from your current situation. So if you are sick of getting yourself stuck in the same negative patterns, whether it's to do with money or any other area of your life, sick of reacting to the undesired 3D circumstances, creating more shit in this never-ending loop that you don't want, and instead you want to learn how to create a crystal clear vision and learn how to consciously create that vision step by step, come and work with me. You can join us in the membership. It's there. It's all waiting for you, babe. It's 88 quid a month. There's no contract. You can access all of the content in there. There's 4 modules, 37 lessons, live masterclasses, Q&A playbacks. We're doing a masterclass tomorrow, actually. There's loads of resources, there's subliminals, guided meditations, and there's also a beautiful community of people that I absolutely adore who are getting to know each other and who are all on this same journey with me. So if you want to go all in on creating your vision and bringing it in, then you can join us annually as well, which includes all of the above, but with monthly one-to-one sessions that guide you through that work. And that is 1,111 for the year. So if you're ready, the links are in my bio, they'll be in the show notes, so you can send me a message on Instagram or wherever and I'll send them over. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope that it's given you a feeling of power back, that actually, yes, you might have created a load of shit that you're not enjoying at all, but you have exactly that same power to create a completely different experience. And you don't have to wait years for that to happen. Not at all. So if you did find this episode useful, I would be eternally grateful if you would leave me a review, because it will really help me reach more people and grow the audience of this podcast. Ooh, that was a long one, 35 minutes. So yeah, I hope you have a beautiful, abundant week, and I will speak to you all soon. See you later.